The AI Shift Podcast. Let's go.
And yeah, that's why I said to an elephant wouldn't make a good pet, really. But you know, that's an argument to have with her again on another day. Anyway, we are back today to talk about some more AI goodness. And I think today's topic is around founders, solo founders. Is AI going to make these people superhuman, able to do everything that a team could do? I think Lee is going to be very much pro, and maybe I can be the bad guy in this episode and say no, but maybe we'll have a heated debate over it. Or cool. Leah just beat me into submission again.
I'm just saying, yeah, just accept you're wrong, and then we can move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall I set up a prognosis to this?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Yeah, set the scene.
Set the scene. So when AI was, the LLM stuff was all kind of taken off. A lot of the CEOs of the big companies, the OpenAIs, the DeepMinds, and all this stuff, they all came out and were like, at some point we're going to see a single founder with $1 billion company and blah 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 blah. That was the kind of the narrative they were kind of portraying, and I think the narrative is like a good one in the respect. Like I think maybe the number that they're kind of saying maybe not right. We'll see how that kind of goes, but I think the thing they're kind of trying to encapsulate here makes complete sense though, which is if you can orchestrate a lot of the other things around a business, not every business, but ones, and you as a single human can do the key bit or a subset of it, or even just own it. Why can't you just be a single founder that can have a company worth 100, 200, 500 million dollars? Or revenue that is to that level, right?
Yeah, I guess there is that, but you've still got to have that business acumen, right? You've still got to understand how to run a business. You've still got to understand the accounts. Otherwise, you're going to have to get people in to do that side of things, or you pay a third-party platform to do it. So yeah, you might be able to use the AI, I guess, to like automate some of your sales funnels and things like that. But what else are you going to get it to do? Because obviously we're coming at it from software sort of point of view. Yeah, we can get the AI to write software, but what else are you achieving with AI?
I think that's just one subset though, right? The software development side of things, yeah, probably the biggest market over the next year or two. But as mentioned in an amazing book called DKR, I forget the author, where Mallon talks about how, you start to have these agentic... that's it, let's get the plug in. Perfect, there we go.
A little bit dog-eared, because that travelled with me on a summer vacation.
Yeah,
covered in sun cream. Yeah.
I think there's a shift that is currently people are using. There's an array of usabilities of AI at the kind of, I guess, the cutting edge of the majority of people in companies is using it to write code to do things. But I think we'll see a shift this year, next year, of more people using it to replicate roles. So, you're right. Like, yes, we're making these tools now, but what happens when the tool doesn't exist anymore because you're replicating the role of the person? So, to your accounts and business perspective, yeah, I think the people potentially who will get the upper hand on this are the ones who are the generalist across the board. They've been freelance their entire career, or they've run a business, but have like the domain expertise in whatever vertical it is, because they're used to kind of having to do 10% of everyone's role. Whereas before they would have to hire a person, upskill them, get them doing it in their way. Yes, today they could build a tool to assist that person, But what happens if you just remove the humans from the equation, and then they basically just become the orchestrator of agents, which are the people in them roles, and them agents are using systems and software to kind of do the thing. I'm not saying it's for everyone by any means, but I can see more and more the opportunity to reduce human context switching for you as a owner or as a founder, and the infrastructure and the tools are going to support that kind of scalability that comes with it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that if you're going to try and achieve that, you've got to have some blind faith, I guess, that what the AI is telling you in that particular area is right, because you maybe can't validate it as easily as something in your specific wheelhouse, like what you're good at.
But how different is that than a member of staff telling you?
Yeah, I guess there's a
Apart from
level of trust there,
ramifications,
because yeah, you could sack that person and get someone else, but then I guess you could sack that model off and use a different
AI is
model.
the AI is not going to be like, oh, I can't pay my digital mortgage this month. I might need to tell him what he wants to hear. Whereas you do have that. Unfortunately, you have that humanistic kind of control factor to a degree. That people are going to do a good job or do the right thing because they want to keep getting work and get money and providing for their families and stuff.
Yeah.
Will that happen though from a model perspective through other? They're operating on a reward mechanic already. From a transformer perspective, it's just do we switch the if you threaten to turn it off, does it work harder?
Yeah. And I guess you're seeing some of these providers, like OpenAI, now throwing in adverts that they're obviously advertising businesses and services. If you're using an AI to do something, is the AI going to have some bias to go and start using the services that it's been advertised towards? Because that's kind of like, it's almost industrial espionage, right? Yeah, but there are rules and regulations and laws that people have that have to adhere to, where you can't do insider trading and all that sort of stuff.
They still do. I'm not.
The issue is I can't.
Auditable.
Yeah. I guess the issue is I can't disagree with you, because that does happen. Is it easier in that sense then, because you've got like maybe Anthropic doesn't do it, but OpenAI does, that if you use an OpenAI, that they've got some underhanded way of doing it that maybe it's not as obvious. Are they gonna influence it? And I guess there's right now there's nothing to say they aren't already influencing those decisions when we're talking to these models and asking them questions, and they've already got a built-in bias. I don't know if there's any way around it, because even if it's learning from content online, there's a bias there, right? Sometimes it's an unsavory bias, where they had that AI early on that took to Twitter to build its own persona, and it became a massive racist, and they had to turn it all off.
Microsoft, forget what it was called, the Microsoft one, basically. Yeah, it was basically based on how people interacted with it is what it would.
And it looks like Microsoft have been got bitten by that, and now they just have Copilot and pimp that out as their AI, when it's not really an AI. It's just a wrapper around everyone else's AI. They don't want to do their own anymore.
No, I think there's I don't know. I'm of the view, rightly or wrongly, that a lot of roles and skills you need in a business are or can be done by people that don't necessarily want to be doing that job, right? They do it because it's the skill they have, so they're not passionate about it. The ones who are passionate about it, there's not many of them, or like you can't potentially afford them, right? So you have to you need someone, you need an accountant, or you need someone to do your like financial control. You can afford this much based on the type of work you do and the projects you do. The person who loves it and is the best at it is 10 times the price potentially, right? So you could argue you're never really competing against like, oh, we're missing out on the best human person. The thing you're replacing is potentially the mediocre option, right? So does it become that it becomes does it become that it's a person, like you said, that's an outsourced person, and that person, instead of being just your financial controller, they're doing it for 20 people, and you still have that human touch bit, which is the fear, the pay my mortgage type of trust aspect. But I think for me personally, like I would much more prefer like to be single founder owner of a thing and have just agentic behaviors doing the other pieces. But obviously,
is that more because you're a control freak and a sociopath doesn't want to talk to people?
All right, chill out. So I will talk to people through my agent. That's
the whole premise of DKL, right? So real worldly doesn't have to deal with anybody. They can all deal with AI Lee, with ChatGPT Lee.
They can deal with AI Lee. I will happily talk to people over breakfast, talking about fun stuff. I think when you're talking in work thing, there's a lot of things that kind of get in the way, such as like laws, human rights. Like, kind of, I think that all them things kind of play a part. And I get it, like, and I don't, I definitely don't, I fear the mass layoff concern that people have within business with regards to this stuff. But at the same time, I just think there's a potential flip of that, which is people can actually just be unlocked to do the thing they are massively passionate about, right? However unique and small it is, because they can go, right, if I do this on my own, I can make $10,000 a year, right? Or whatever the number is. Okay, that's not enough to quit the job. Okay, right, it's a side hobby. If I want to get it to become a real company, then I need it to make, just $100,000 a year, right? Let's just say. So they go, okay, fine. But if I'm doing that amount of work for 100,000, well, let's just say it's that the guys who like clear the snow, like in America. Like I'm obsessed on these videos and like TikTok and stuff. But there's a number of hours of which they can operate, right? They are confined by 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. So they can up their price per house, but there's still an infinite amount of what's the word?
Finite.
Thank you. They have a finite amount of houses that they can do unless they add people, or they up the price, or they reduce the time of execution. So at some point there will be a threshold they'll hit. Let's say that threshold means that they can make $1 million a year, like hypothetically. For them to then, service the car, to have someone organize the appointments, doing lead gen, doing advertising, doing marketing, doing operations, doing financing, doing asset management, Traditionally, that's potentially a 5-10 person team, or it's that person or everyone in the team working 12, 16 hours a day instead of doing other bits as well as doing the task at hand. So what if all of that operation stuff can be handled through AI, and the compute that it costs to do that costs $30,000 a year, right? Then now if he's like, right, my target to replace my job, I need 100,000, it's 30,000 to do this, plus some taxes, I now have to make 150,000 a year. Not $1 million,
Yeah.
The downside is there's no routes of distribution of jobs that come from that, right? Apart from him or her finding other people like them to then, like other snowplowers, right? And they're basically just extending the actual task at hand. Or eventually then they get a robot and they speed that up again, and it becomes this thing. But potentially then you go, right, instead of going to someone and going, you can plow driveways for $7 an hour and it's seen as a rubbish job, paying minimum money. You can turn around and go, actually, I can pay you 90 grand a year, because I'm just going to take 10 grand on the top just for the process of it. I've got my AI scaling all this stuff. It's doing all this stuff. We're getting so much amount of work, and they get to now work with someone who's equally as passionate as them because they're getting paid 90,000, not 20,000.
So if the economy then becomes all of these like micro businesses,
I think so.
you're losing a large portion of the workforce to those that are not technology literate, because there's still that barrier to entry, right? You've got to have some sort of technological literacy at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So they're suddenly out of the market. They haven't got much to do. The snow sweepers, right? And we stick with that, is quite a manual, non-technical job. You've just got rid of the technical side of it. Surely that, say, like I didn't have a job. I went, oh well, I'll spin up and do the same thing. I'm going to do snow plowing as well as this other guy. And then someone else thinks about it. Someone else thinks about it. It's then a race to the bottom for how much you're gonna pay. But you've also got a large portion of people that are maybe not working, or they're not earning as much money now because there's not as much opportunity. Is that not going to bring the overall value of the economy down? You're not going to be able to make that 100,000 a year anymore. Suddenly it's 75, then it's 60, and it's 50, and then it's 30, and then we're all basically working for nothing. Is it sort of what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a decaying effect.
It kind of leads us into like a communist type situation where we just get what we get, and most of the work's done by the people that are passionate about it, as you said. But those that don't really have a passion or can't be bothered don't need to, because they're still going to get their food, they're still going to get their water and stuff. Is it not pushing you towards that? Is that not a risk of?
Well, sure, but what's the alternative, right? Like what we have today, where people, like what's the difference? That some people don't work today, because they can't medically, or because they don't have the passion, or they have other issues, or people take a job that, I'm not saying all jobs are going to disappear, right, by any means. But I just think that it should be seen as an unlock of new opportunity rather than a removal of existing stuff. But I think everyone is passionate about something, right? It's a tricky one in the respect of how do you not do it? Like, let's just, because if you flip it the other way around, what the alternative is that big companies dominate the whole space, and they do it with a 90% reduction of staff, because they're not, no one's really talking about the staff reduction thing that as much as they should. There is no way, it is impossible for companies to embrace this technological shift and keep the same amount of staff unless three things have to happen. One, staff have to go. Two, they have to increase the market they go after because they're going to have all this extra resource. Or three, they have to pay everyone more money. Yeah. Because people are doing more value, like the business is making more money and there's more value into it, right? It's highly, highly unlikely that companies are going to get the productivity benefits of AI enablement and enhancement. And let's say an average 40-hour-a-week job drops now to 20 hours. I'm going to tell everyone they can have 2 days off. And no change to them. They should, and that should be, that becomes the societal change, right? Like, that becomes the thing of going, we went from 7 days farming to 5 days working, industrial revolution. COVID came along, we all started working from home, we all started seeing that, 4 days is probably actually more. Most people do 25 hours of work a week, like good work. And I think if you could get it to that kind of framing, then, that's how you get the uplift on the economy. Because there is the risk that the big company, even if you have the people who are individually passionate and they build this 1 to 5 person company that's doing, tens of millions of dollars. Once they hit a certain point, a big company's going to want to come in and take them out, right? AI or not, like it's just
Yeah.
economics. So it's always going to be a threat. I just think there's a potential where that one person who's passionate, who potentially makes 20 grand a year, they can make the same level of income in 1 year than they would take 5 years. And maybe when the big company comes in and takes them out, they go, okay, well, either we drop our prices by 10% or we reduce our customer count. Or I can retire now because actually I've done this for 3 years. I've paid off the house. I'm not greedy. I'm not flashy. I just kind of want to do the thing. But I honestly believe that apart from when people have to constrain because of circumstance, if something is a value priced, like people want to connect with the person, right? They want to help the person. They don't want to feed the corporation machine. It's just unfortunately sometimes that is the better product.
Yeah. And it's going to be one of the suck it and see type thing, isn't it? I guess this situation isn't unique to AI revolution or anything like that. We saw it in the motor industry where they changed a lot of the assembly lines to robots, and everyone was like,
Yeah.
"We're never going to have another job. Everything's going to be built by robots." Which, yeah, they reduce the head count, but still not everything is done by robots, right? There's still human interaction. They still need those engineers. They still need those people to validate and check stuff. And there's still people working in that industry now. It maybe it probably is still a reduced headcount to where it was, say, 50 years ago or more. Maybe we're going to see the
That's
same
what it should
thing.
though, right?
Same
It,
thing.
it would be it'd be bad for humanity to be doing the same thing we did 50 years ago than what we do now.
Yeah.
And now we're building rockets, and now we're folding proteins, and you can be on the other. Currently, you can be on the other side of the world in 24 hours. In the next 100 years, you'll be on the other side of the world in an hour. I'm potentially on another planet for a cheeky weekend away on holiday. Like it's a continuation of innovation is, I don't think, a bad thing. You just want it to be done by the good people, right? But unfortunately, you can't really ever control that. But I think
Human greed, right? That's
Sure.
going to be the downfall, and that's where a lot of the bad points are going to come from.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think there's a lot of time. I think now there's a window of time when we saw it from you look at the places where that where it exists, where a single person runs a business. I know many people who've run like Amazon brand, Amazon stores and stuff, and they've gone off to China. They do the fulfillment or whatever, and they I know someone who basically built one up, sold it for like about $2-3 million, something like that. And that's just a dropshipping company, right? At the end of the day, like Amazon's doing all the hard work. The Chinese company doing all the manufacturing. They basically just created a brand and a storefront, and kind of plugged the things together. And you could argue like what real value is being added there, right? I'm sure they would justify it, from their perspective. It's all just relative. But that's a one person gig, right? Like it was.
Yeah.
It's the difference is that that's leveraging a lot of infrastructure, both physical and digital.
And I suppose I could be looking at this incorrectly, because the opportunities to automate stuff is out there right now. And there are people that are leveraging that, and there are people that aren't. There's people that talk about going to do certain things with it, and they don't. They're probably going to be the exact same people that in 5 years' time are still not doing anything. They may be talking about it. They're not interested in it. They can't be bothered with it. So the barrier to entry may be being lowered, but even with that lower barrier to entry, it's whether people can actually be bothered to make those steps forward and embrace those things, which not everybody's going to do, I guess.
No, but I guess it's down to the people at the front to do it, right? And you just hope the people at the front that do it are the good ones, and they kind of they document the path, and they show like what they've done, and They kind of pass it on to the next level, and it goes like that. But but it's still going to compete. You're still going to have it. Like, you build a product and you sell it for $100 a year or $100 for an item, and then someone's going to come along. They're going to see what you did, and that you've validated the market, you've validated the process. They copy it, and they can be like, right, we can undercut this by 50, either on purpose to get you out the market, or just because their life choices are different than yours, and therefore they can charge less. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it,
Yeah.
I think it's then that's just that is unfortunately just like what it is to just be in the market, really. And I think the key here is, before, if you wanted to be a single business owner, it was always seen as a lifestyle business. Firstly, right? It was always seen as that thing that it had a ceiling of size and of financial constraint. Or you were heavily leveraged on someone else, Google, Facebook, or whatever. An influencer arguably is a business. It's one person, but actually their success metric is based on what the platform gives for views. They can try and hack the algorithm, but at the end of the day, their account gets banned, all income drops. Amazon basically track the things that sell the most, and then they make an Amazon Basic version of it. So if your thing at some point comes up on their radar, they're going to take you out, right? Because you'll pick the Amazon Basic version probably because they'll be 30% cheaper. Unless you can build up a decent brand, but then can you really build up a decent brand on something like Amazon, where people are intent buying, not, emotionally buying? So, all these things are not new. I think the new thing is that I think now, because of AI and because of agents and because of, turning other, roles and stuff into a digital equivalent, that you can do it for almost any business. You can be a chef and you can be a chef and you can have a server, and you can automate everything else. And to be fair, to some degree, you could even automate the chef and the server bit, and then which is the bit that you're passionate about,
And your time to market with the use of AI is better, is quicker, and also the cost of it, right? Because I know that over the years of being in this industry, I've had many friends, acquaintances say they wish that they were able to basically turn nothing into money, which is what we kind of do, right? It's time and experience, and it's taken me 20 plus years to get to the point where I've got the skill set to be able to turn nothing into money. But with the use of AI, they can also harness that use of turning time into money without the overhead of all the years experience needed to a degree, right?
Sure. And sometimes we over-engineer things, right? We make them much more complicated than they need to be. And someone who has the domain knowledge in the thing that we're typically building for, they'll they could do a quick hacky product on like a Lovable or on a V0 or NA or something. I mean, and actually it solves the problem.
Yeah.
It's really, I always find it funny how polished I want tools that I build to be. And yet I use some really crappy tools that I pay, tens, if not hundreds of dollars a month for, that are terrible.
Yeah.
But they solve the problem.
Yeah, I was just sitting here feeling guilty myself there, because I sit in these meetings with clients and I'm like, is that really needed? Is that feature gonna sell the product or not? Do we need to do it now? Can we do it later? And yet every product that I work on for myself, I'm like, yeah, it could do with this feature. It could do with that feature. Because I had a product pretty much ready to go out to market, had a few conversations with people and went, yeah, there's a big feature here missing. And I've now rewritten large swathes of it. Whereas what I should have done is actually pushed it out to market, got people really using it.
Yeah.
And then seeing if it was worthwhile doing. But
yeah, I think,
and I guess that'd be the difference between like us and someone just randomly picking it up as well, is that they could get it to that first stage, but then maybe when they need to extrapolate on the top of it, they can't do that. They need to understand a little bit more of it. I don't know.
But I think that's the key, right? That's where. But then normally that person would go to a application, like a build company, or they'd have to hire a team, and they end up then with a 10-person team. They have to get investment, or they have to take loans out or debt or whatever. Whereas they can just go and find like a person, and a person who has technical knowledge can do what before was, a 5-person, 10-person business. Especially within the constraint of the thing that is being built or whatever. So now you have a domain person, you have a technical person, and maybe then you have a salesperson, right? Or if they're not one of the other two, you can sell it, you can build it, you know what the customer wants. I really think it becomes that kind of straightforward and simple in a lot of cases. And then I think the follow up then is just it's just the customer service, right? And it's not necessarily customer service as in nice replies to emails and things, because to be fair, it's going to be agent to agent in most scenarios. But I think it's more how is the value proposition right? Because you look at stuff now and every Friday I basically build a mini tool for myself, for something. And, a lot of the time there's tools out there that do it, I built an international time zone manager for meetings because I'm working in 3 time zones at the moment. There's tools that kind of do it, but it was quicker probably
clocks.
for me to build. I do have the clocks. It's just when I'm trying to figure out what time I need to do a meeting in New York, and then what time it is here, and what time it is in UK, and what time it is in Singapore. And I think that these, but I think these tools they exist, but actually to go and find the tool, to use it a little bit, to then figure out it's not quite what I want, or have to log in or pay or whatever the thing may be, it's much quicker for me just to turn dictation on my computer and just spiel out nonsense for 4 minutes, and then get Claude or one of these tools to just, go off and write the code for me, because it doesn't have to be perfect, and it's just personalized to me. I can just deploy it, and then I will just use it. And I think, that's that type of hacking your own role becomes, it's that what I'm describing is that on steroids, right? It's just that kind of much bigger thinking and going, okay, as we've had discussed before, we're both kind of trying to do a lot of salesy automation stuff, and trying to understand the sales world kind of a lot more with stuff we're working on. And it's you can address it from an engineering mindset, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, and I think that the developer side was the toxic trait whenever you want to do something, right, is, I'll build a tool to do that. And whereas a year ago, we could do it, but we'd probably take a week or 2 weeks or 6 months to build the tool to do it. It's now done in minutes. I know this morning before we jumped on to do this, I was working on some client stuff. I had a thought about something in the back of my mind that I needed to do, and I was I'm not sure how to do it. And I just set off one of the models to go, this is my thoughts, go and make these into some sort of coherent plan, and then go and build a tool to do it. So I carried on with my client work. It went and did that. And I just got a notification when it had done to say, go and have a look at this, and then give it 5 minutes, test it. Does it work? Yeah, cool. Right. That's that problem solved. And I can just now set that up on a schedule to do those little tasks. So okay, I can see that those solo founders are definitely possible. I think that having your own offering as a SaaS or a PaaS or whatever other anagram you want to use is pretty good and pretty possible. But how do you go about convincing other companies that you as a solo service provider can do everything they need? And this,
I'm glad you asked that question.
Again, it's not a new thing, right? I've had this situation before where I've been pimped out to companies, and they're like, "Oh, James can do this and this and that and the other. Do you need, And the client was like, "Oh, I need a tester and I need a UI person." And no, James used to be a graphic designer. He can do testing. He can do this, do that. And then they're like, "Okay." And we've had to sort of go, look, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you never have to work with us again, and you can call us for whatever, and then I have to go out and prove the point. But it's very hard to get into that situation now. It's going to be a lot harder with these AI tools to then go, yeah, James could do everything, but he's going to augment himself with AI as well, so he's not really doing it. It's his AI that's doing it.
But I think that's the sales pitch. Like how many times over the years have people worked in companies? Well, a few things. One, you go to a pitch and they go, "How many staff do you have?" And you're like, "Well, there's this 6 of us, but if we call in the aunties, the uncles, the pets, the neighbours, we can probably make the office look like there's 25." So we could go, well, we have a core team, but our community is more like around 30, 40 people, of different resources and skills we can bring in. And people go, oh, yeah. They know you're not telling the truth, right? But they have to, everyone has to feel reassured, right? They have to feel like, they're not going to get fired. That's all it is. Will I get fired? And I think I think there's a shift. I think people are, the big tech companies have done everyone a favor in many ways, in the respect that they have shown us that they've hyped up AI as being this complete savior for humanity, and everyone expects high things from it. So before, if you turned up, like you said, and you're one person, you say, look, I can build this software, I can do your requirements gathering, I can test it, I can deploy it, they would see risk in you, right? They would see either burnout, or more importantly, they'd be like, how can this one person do all this when I have a team of 5 developers, which are currently slightly overstretched, which is why we're outsourcing it, and they can't do it, right? There becomes a judgment aspect. AI is the biggest cop-out ever to defend it, because you can basically go, look, I can do this, and they go, yeah, but how? And you go, oh, I use AI agents for this. I built this AI tool that helps me here. I've automated this flow. And they go, because of the hype around it from a marketing perspective, they go, okay, like that sounds cool, And I think, and when you then turn around and go, and it's going to cost you half the price of what you paid before, then, again, that becomes the win as well, right? You still have kind of key person, risk, and the fact that, there's a person there. But the way to resolve that is, instead of it taking 6 months to build the thing or to make the thing, it takes 2 weeks. We just have to move away from being build out hours, and it needs to be more outcome and, objective driven, be it, and for them, and it doesn't matter if it's a software product or if it's a, if it's a physical product or a physical service. If you're a dog walker, there's the idea that you can completely orchestrate literally a human will turn up at your house or your apartment, be handed a dog for you to then go and walk, and then for you to return. Everything else can be automated, right? And that dog walker can then optimize their time to do the thing that they actually enjoy doing, or get paid very well for the thing that maybe they don't enjoy doing, because everything else is basically being done by machines, and the kind of cost economy for that just kind of is basically zero for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, I can see that working.
So you convert?
Yeah, I think so. I think I just need to work out how I get on this bandwagon and make my millions before the economy falls apart, and then I've just got all my money to go and live on Mars rather than just holiday in there at the weekend, like you said.
Yeah. I think there's definitely I think the one shift will be is then I think that there'll be a need for people still want to hang around with people, right? Like, they'll still want to engage. And I think the whole co-worky kind of environment, I think, was great. I think it was, again, not well executed, but I think you potentially will have lots of single-found business owners sharing maybe office spaces, or not office spaces, maybe it's a cafe space or whatever, because people want to be around people, right? And if they're equally passionate about their thing, like, I can listen and talk to anyone who's passionate about the thing they're passionate about. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're passionate about it, like, that's the story. And I think if we can enable more of that in the world, then that's not a bad thing by any means.
Yeah, I think that's a good bombshell to
finish on.
End the show on. I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Until next week. So we should have like a score chart of like James convinced Lee. Lee convinced James. Like see it as like a
because we're not competitive enough between ourselves. Yeah, let's add something else.
Yeah. I can ungrow my hair faster than you. Yeah. Cool. Until next time.
All right. Bye.
The AI Shift Podcast. Let's go.